Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Introduction to Coding MREs. I'm a little surprised by the interest in this course. It's really exciting, so I'm hoping it's going to be worth everybody's time. A lot of you people here. So. Alright, well thanks for showing, and let's go ahead and get started here. Alright, so this is Introduction to MREs. This is kind of what we'll be going over today. I guess overall, let me say I'm planning on this being a 5-week course. The original plan was to have like the 6th day be kind of a day to show off a project, and I still think it'd be great if folks would come up with some MRE project that they want to show off that day. The catch is we had over 200 people interested in this course. If that many people actually were able to be able to see all that in one day. It's hard to hear. Give me a second.
Oh man.
Is that any better? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Sounds like people can hear me then. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so still think it'd be awesome if everybody comes up with an idea. We might have to split up the actual showing of everybody's ideas over a few weeks. But we'll find some way to get it going. I know I'd love to see everybody's ideas. And if you have trouble coming up with an idea, I've got a few that would be great for the course too. So feel free to ask me about that. So this is what we're going to cover for the day. Kind of a quick agenda here. Hope everybody's had a chance to read it. I won't read the screen to you, but that's basically what we'll be covering today. All right, so keeping in touch here. So to go to, this is developer.altvr.com. I don't know if all of you have seen this yet, but this is kind of the main site that Altspace provides for developers in general, MREs in particular. What I have circled there is a link to the MRE Discord community. Stephen, the person who runs that, was nice enough to set up a channel specifically for this course. So that's going to be kind of the best way throughout the week to kind of go back and forth to help each other. I'm going to be checking that pretty regularly, so check that out. So if you go there, it's called Intro to MREs. It's the channel once you get into that server. And again, go to developer.altvr.com to get to that server. All right, the goals of the course. This is the MRE learning curve here. The picture there is kind of what I think a lot of us have felt like as we've been trying it. You start climbing, then you kind of fall down, think it's just not going to work. You just get really frustrated with it, and then you go at it again and keep trying to go. So kind of the goals of the course is to get over that steep learning curve with the MREs that happen to be there. I'm going to go over some of the common bugs and limitations of MREs. The way I'm thinking of this course is a lot of it is lessons learned I've had. There are some things that are just a little buggy that I've kind of learned how to get around. Some things that I've just figured out don't work right now, so I have to just avoid them and come up with some other way of doing it. And I'm just really wanting to share all that with everybody as well. And then really that's that second bullet there, really get everybody so they know how to look at that developer.altvr.com site and what's provided there, and really learn how they can navigate to find what they want there. The API, you see it has 69 classes and 47 interfaces. Each of those classes has multiple methods associated with it, and all of them have quite a few data items associated with them. So we're not going to go over those 116 classes and interfaces in the class. That would be like probably 100 class one there. All right, let's see, I'm getting a message that some people are having trouble hearing me. Can you give me smiley faces if you can hear me? Frowny faces if you're having trouble? Okay, I'm seeing mostly smiley faces. Let me see if I can do here. I got the microphone a good bit closer to my mouth now. Hopefully that'll help. So yeah, I'm getting some smileys, some frownies. Maybe that's helping. Okay, I've got it turned up as much as I can, and I am on megaphone. For right now, I'll continue. For before the next class, I'll look for a different headset maybe. that may work a little better. But it's looking like a lot of you can hear me okay. So, all right, I'm hearing that we have a green screen in 3. Let me try broadcasting again. All right. How about now? Can people see the screen again? Okay, great. I got a you are okay now, and it says green and 2 was okay before. All right. So the people who are in 2 and 3, were you ever able to see the screen? All right, I'm going to turn off the web projector and then turn it back on and see if that helps. All right, I'm going to stop streaming and start streaming again. All right. Yeah, I've got a green screen now too, but now I think I've got it here. Let's see if this helps. Is that any better? All right, room 1 looks good. How about the other rooms? All right, good. All right. All right, so we're going to try to, all right, looks like all the rooms are good. Appreciate it, everybody. All right, and so we're going to be working around, working through the problems and keep going here. All right, so the various interfaces, obviously we're not going to have time to do all that in a 5-hour course, but it's really going to be kind of helping everybody figure out where to look for everything. All right, get my focus back to here. All right, so MREs, the good here. So why do we want to do them? But basically, it's because it makes Altspace more fun, right? Makes it more interactive here. You can attach items to avatars. You know, you might be having a bad day, then you get a blue top hat on your avatar, and it makes you happy all of a sudden, right? And it just makes the world more interesting in general here. It's more responsive to avatars interaction. You can do various things that you just cannot do with the standard interface. So that's the good of it. The bad of it, expect a good bit of frustration, like I mentioned before. I'd love to be able to tell you that MREs are the one part of Altspace that isn't buggy, but that's just not the case. They're buggy just like all other parts of Altspace, and it's just something we got to work with. A few of the items here, you see the physics just does not work. That's one of the things I've learned. There are ways that you're supposed to be able to detect where objects or people are, and they just don't work. But I've got some more. And then there are lots of late joiner bugs. Anybody who's been to a party and tried to put some wings on and had troubles, that's what that is. Or maybe you come into a party and you can see some people's wings but not others. It's that same type of thing. That's all kind of related to that MRE core library. There's just not. There are some things I've learned that you can do about it that I think work, and I'll be sharing those as we go along. But there's going to be some frustration. Unfortunately, we just got to expect that. And then, of course, MREs, they'll be working for a while. Altspace will make an adjustment. If you tried to use Ben's video MRE a few days ago, it stopped working all of a sudden. You know, that just kind of happens, unfortunately. And it's something you got to deal with. So. All right, stepping forward. The ugly, and kind of what I'm showing here. Here's a list of MREs for interactive items that Altspace provides, and a list of the non-MREs. So you can see there are a good bit more non-MREs that are interactive. They just do immunity themselves. And stepping forward here, there's really only a couple that they really do much with. The multimedia player and that helmet's MRE, which that's the thing that puts on everything. So your helmets, your wings, all that work for the helmet's MRE. And you see there's just not a lot that goes on. Altspace barely uses MREs themselves, and that I think is a lot of why there are some long-term bugs in them. It makes them a low-priority item. Ultimately, though, if they do work well enough to do some things with, you just got to manage your expectations. It may not be the awesome thing you're thinking of, but you generally can come up with some useful workaround for the limitations you run into, at least in my experience so far. All right, fundamentally how MREs work here. So you've got the user, that's of course somebody with their headset on, the little stick man is. They talk to the Altspace server, and they also talk to the MRE server, which talks to the MRE app. And the MRE app is where you spend the vast majority of your development time. One of the more interesting things, the Altspace server and the MRE server never talk to each other. So Altspace actually has no idea if any of your MREs are actually running at any point. It's just the user's headsets themselves. To deploy an MRE for wide usage, you'll need a server somewhere on the internet, and that you can have something constantly running on. And there are a few we'll talk about that are free that I've seen some folks use. And we'll talk about the differences between them a little bit later as well. So now if you have two users connecting, so this is maybe two users entering the same world, both of their headsets will be talking to the Altspace server, both will be talking to the MRE server. But again, since Altspace doesn't talk to the MREs, all the synchronization happens either through the Altspace server for the various Altspace objects or the MRE server for the things you control there. And unfortunately, that MRE synchronization is pretty buggy. That's related to that the bits we talked about before, where the late joiners can't see all the attachments that are on people, that the wings or the hats or whatever that the people who were there early on work do. And there are ways that seem to help with that that I plan on doing at some point, but that's kind of where the source of the limitation comes from. It's in that the Altspace provided section of that MRE server. Okay, I'm getting a mic too close to my mouth now. Let's see if this works any better. That's sounding good to people? All right, I'm getting smiley faces. All right. So we'll stick with it here, and then let me know if it gets too quiet again. I moved it closer when people were having trouble hearing me. So. All right, so MREs here, what they are fundamentally, and don't worry if you don't understand all the words here. So up front, it's just kind of a bottom line up front I'm giving you here. They're basically Node.js servers, and they're typically written in a language called TypeScript. Node.js is a free open source JavaScript runtime that's not running inside a browser. Most of the time, JavaScript is running inside a Chrome browser or whatever browser you use. In this particular case, it's running outside any browser, and it's really just running as a server. And it's actually a very common web server that's used, and that's a lot of the reason Altspace picked it, Node.js, for MREs. It needs a lot of the same properties that a web server would need as well. The event-driven architecture with asynchronous I/O, we'll talk about a little bit more about what that means for those of you who don't know. But it's basically, it helps a bunch of people connect to the same thing, be talking to it at the same time, and foster this communication between them. TypeScript is what's called a superset of JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, you're perfectly fine running that and typing it into a TypeScript file in particular even. It's similar to C# and C++ for those of you that may be familiar with that. The main advantage it has over JavaScript is a lot of safety features that come in the language. JavaScript is pretty wide open in terms of what it's allowed. It was really designed to run very small things inside a browser, which is why it started out there. You needed something more safe as you're starting to get into the servers, and then that's really where TypeScript came into play. It was developed by Microsoft specifically to have web servers that are more reliable. It's much easier to debug TypeScript than it is JavaScript, for instance. All right, so at this point, I'm going to kind of open the floor to questions. It's been kind of so far it's been a conceptual. I'm going to need to turn off the web projector temporarily so we don't get an echo. All right, and then I will need to increase the volume so I can actually hear people. And all right, I'm going to turn on participation, so please raise your hand if you have a question so far. Okay, I'm getting a notice that I'm pretty loud right now. I'm going to move that away. So, okay. So, Marty, you should be on a megaphone now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks. When there's an object that you're using in your MRE, like in the samples, you know, they use that Altspace cube a lot. Are those objects like actually created by code in the MRE, or can you bring in objects that you made elsewhere and then, you know, write code to act on those objects that came from outside?
You can actually do it either way, and that's something we'll get into, I guess, more next week. But you can bring in a kit item via its kit ID. You can bring in a GLTF file in a couple ways. And then it does provide some basic functions to create them yourselves. And that's what it does in the Hello World. If you look at that, it actually creates that cube and maps the texture on and so on.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. All right. Let's go, Lance. You're up.
Okay, so I was a little distracted, like trying to take notes and stuff. Which one out of those three, the MRE, the Node, again, the Node.js, and then TypeScript, which one of those uses the JavaScript? And is JavaScript hard, as people say?
The difficulty of JavaScript is really just going to be related to how familiar you are with programming in general, I think, is probably the best answer. So Node.js is written in JavaScript. TypeScript is basically JavaScript plus some extra stuff, is probably the best way to describe it. So they're all kind of interrelated. That make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I needed to add that to my notes.
Okay, great. All right, appreciate it. And let's see, Michael S. here. All right, you should be online.
Hi, thanks for that. I don't know if I may have missed this a little bit earlier, but I'm relatively experienced with Unity, especially with the C# coding in Unity, not so much with the MRE JavaScript code. I've heard that there are security reasons why we don't want to allow all the classes of Unity to go up on the engine, but couldn't we allow certain classes, just things like, you know, on trigger enter and what have you, so that we can at least make some basic functionality that goes beyond just, you know, popping a thing on our head or what have you? Are there classes that we can release in Unity that we can still use that allows for functionality in the Altspace engine?
Yeah, not via MREs. Now, I don't work for Altspace. I'm just another user like everybody else, so I can't talk to, you know, what their capabilities are. Now, things like on trigger, on join, things like that, those are in MREs as well. So you can get that functionality that way. But yeah, it's definitely still not as convenient as Unity, unfortunately. So.
I see. All right, thanks.
All right, that looks like all the hand raises. All right, I'm good. Oh, got one more here. All right, JC Fractal.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, how are you, Othello?
Oh, I think you went away, JC. You still there? All right, JC, I'm going to put you on air again to give that another try.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I was just wondering if there are any examples of the on-trigger enter stuff somewhere, so you can kind of reference that and see how it's put together. Are there any examples of those kind of functions in the MREs?
It's something I plan on going on over in probably 2 days, maybe next week. I basically had to figure it out on my own. There may be some in the MRE samples, but it is something I'll be going over. So, all right. All right, appreciate it. And that looks like all of them. Excuse me, having trouble getting the window out of the way, so, okay. So, are all the mics open right now, or are people muted?
Hello?
All right, so I'm going to start sharing again. Here, I'm going to move a little closer. This will be easier. All right, can people see what's here? Okay, good. So, all right, so we'll keep going here. So basically, what do you need to get started with MREs? Obviously, a computer first that's capable of running MREs, and you want to start out at least on your local network. It can be Windows, Mac, or even Linux. It does not need to be especially powerful. It can be one of your lower end machines actually. MREs are not that intensive, at least not for a single user testing it locally. You'll need some type of code editor on your computer as well. Visual Studio Code's a really good one. I use Visual Studio itself, but that's because I have a license to it from work. Visual Studio Code is a free one. It's available that a lot of people like as well. There are others out there, so just your favorite code editor. You'll need Node.js installed on that same computer, and you can get that from nodejs.org. And just FYI, I didn't mention this earlier, but my plan is to post all these links to that Discord channel at the end, since I know you guys can't easily take notes here at the end. So I'll do that, and then I'm going to try to upload these slides to Google Slides as well, and then post that link so people will be able to see that. So. All right, and then Altspace itself. 2D mode is highly recommended for testing MREs. It's a little hard to go into your headset to try to debug something and then take it off to see what's happening on your computer, put it back on. So 2D mode is highly recommended, and it's easiest if it's on the same computer as the MRE, but we'll talk about a way that it won't need to be in a little bit. Okay, to deploy an MRE. So let's say you've gone through the process, you developed it, you debugged it, it's awesome, and you know all of Altspace is going to want to use it, so you want to share it with everybody. What you're going to need to do that, we talked about it a little earlier, is a server somewhere exposed to the internet to run the deployed MRE. It's possible to open up one of your own machines to the internet, of course. I obviously would not recommend doing that unless you really, really know what you're doing. There are some free ones out there. I'll mention a few here. Heroku app, I know that's one that several people use. I think Kai uses that one, and maybe a few others. I've seen several links to that. OpenNode has also been recommended. And again, these are free servers out there, or at least that have a free tier, that let you run some server on them for some period of time. Obviously, for the free tier, there's going to be so many CPU hours per month that they'll allow. So if it's a really popular MRE, it might start working at the beginning of the month and then towards the end stop working and then start again at the beginning of the next month, things like that. My guess is you're not going to find a free one that just gives all the CPU they have, just because there's no way to keep that going in business. And then one of the more unfortunate things is that the way you deploy the MREs is going to be different for every single service. So it's not something I can necessarily help you with. I use one called DreamHost. It's a paid one. The only reason I use that is that I was paying for it already, so it was no additional cost to me. I wouldn't do it for just an MRE if I were any of you. Wouldn't go to that one. I'd try the Heroku or the Open Node and just see how popular your MRE is, and just kind of figure out something if your MRE is so popular that you need another way of hosting it. Altspace does host some MREs. Maybe if it's really popular, they'd be willing to host it. You never know. Worth asking them if that happens. So. And then again, so especially for the deployment, if you're using one that I haven't used, I can't necessarily help you, but maybe somebody else in this group has. Just kind of suggest using that Discord channel that Altspace has made available to us to be able to say, hey, anybody tried it on OpenNode, and see if somebody there can help you. So, all right, I'm getting a notice that I'm choppy. Is my voice choppy to everybody? I guess give me a smiley face if you hear me okay. Okay, I'm getting mostly smiley faces, so I'm going to continue. Give me some frowny faces if it goes bad, and I'll re-enter. Okay, depending on the server you choose to deploy your MRE, I know some of them use Docker, which is kind of a container out there to deploy. You might need that. I think Heroku uses that. I'm told that Windows Azure uses that, the Microsoft provided one, which is, I think it has a free tier as well, but if there's a full pay one. And then GitHub, that's the way a lot of them like to transfer data back and forth to them. Git and GitHub are going to be useful in general, though. That's all the Altspace provided MRE examples are on GitHub, so it'll be useful to have that just so you can get to those and nothing else. All right, so building your first MRE. So we're about to go through and just kind of walk through an MRE sample here. I'm going to attempt to do it while sharing my screen. It seemed to work okay in practice, but it's hard to tell without multiple people in the room here. So, but the Hello World example, I've got it listed here. It's part of Microsoft's MRE examples here. I'm going to assume by the time you get here, you'll have already installed Node.js and Git. Git is what you'll need to get it as well. And again, that was the links for that were on the previous page. And that website there that I'm pointing to contains the instructions to kind of walk you through installing it. I'm going to do it here as well to kind of walk you through it, but it's really just kind of walk through that. So it has the instructions to pull the code from GitHub, to initialize the Node.js server, to build the MRE, and then to run it. The instructions for the Altspace, for what you do in Altspace, are old, so I've kind of shown you the updates here. Instead of what it says to do there, you just go into the world editor and eventually get to this local server here. It kind of shows blank on the screen. There's no icon for it, but if you look for local server, you'll be able to install that. So, all right, so I'm going to kind of walk through it at this point. Hopefully people will see it. All right, I'm seeing the screen at least, so good seeing some smiley faces here. So this is the top of that page when you get into it. So it's on GitHub again. Their README has these nice instructions here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to copy the git command rather than trying to type that in. Copy and then paste it over here in this window. At least attempt to paste it. There we go. All right, it's going through, it's contacting GitHub and checking out everything. So that part worked well. The next part is to change into the next directory. So I'm just going to do that from the command line here. And then into Hello World inside of there. Oh, samples Hello World, excuse me. And that's, of course, all in the command line over there. And then these next three things. This first one kind of installs all the dependencies you needed and initializes it, the NPM environment, based off of what's in there. So it's kind of something you do whenever you start a new project here. And my keyboard is giving me troubles here. There we go. NPM init. Alright, NPM install. So now it's pulling in everything it needs based off of what's in the NPM configuration. And again, Microsoft's providing all this for you. Alright, it shows some vulnerabilities here, but that kind of surprised me. It didn't happen last night. That must be new. So I hope I'm getting some messages about green screens again. So let me stop sharing and start sharing again. All right. And broadcast. All right, can people see things again? Okay, good, good. All right, looks like it's good in all of them. Appreciate everybody. Okay, npm run build. And again, I'm just following the directions over here. What this does, it actually compiles the MRE. And then npm start. And you see it does not look that interesting. It just kind of prints out some stuff, and unfortunately it just doesn't look that interesting overall. So what it's doing, okay, I'm getting a message that the message is too far away, so you can't really see it. I'm really just kind of walking through here, but the web page is probably what's too small. Okay, type size in browser is too small to read. Basically, it says to go through what I've done here, so I'm going to just kind of, I'll remember that for next week and have the browser font set larger. But for right now, I've basically been through everything it says. So right now, it's running. Unfortunately, if I were to go through the process and bring it in here, none of you could see it. The main thing I want to point out is this base URL. That 127.0.0.1 and then that 3901 is a port number. That port number is the default MRE port. So what this is good for is if I were to bring in on my machine that local server that I talked about before, and I'm just going to cancel out of this since you guys aren't going to be able to see it anyway. And come back. Give me 1 second here. The presentation mode when I come back is in the way sometimes. All right, there we go. All right, so what happens with that 127.0.0.1? That's what's called the loopback or the local host interface. If I were to bring up that local server in my browser, I would be able to see it because my computer could connect to it, but none of yours could. So you just see that star with the frowny face that happens when MREs aren't working, right? So what happens there is that, so this is kind of running what happens with that local server. So this local host, which is that 127.0.0.1 address, my Altspace VR2D is connecting to that. Now all of you, if I were to bring that in, I won't bother because all you'll see is that star with the frowny face. What would happen would all of you would get the signal to connect to that as well, but you can't connect to my server. It's kind of on my machine only. It doesn't even get outside the machine. And then Altspace is talking to the server there. So if one of you were in the same for instance, if I brought in here, you're in the same world, your headset would try to connect to the Altspace, to the server, to say connect to the MRE, local machine here. So unfortunately, you couldn't see it, and things wouldn't work. If you were running actually an MRE on your local machine and did that, it would pop up your MRE, whatever it is running. So I might have Hello World running, and you would have something else. Okay, I'm just getting a lot of frowny faces. Can people hear me, not hear me? Oh, no image again. Okay. Get my mouse back here. This web projector is a bit challenging. All right, is that better? All right, good. Appreciate it. All right, well, it looks like it's in all the rooms again. Thank you, mods. I don't know how I would be doing this without you guys giving me feedback on the other rooms as well. So, all right, so what I was talking about here, since I don't think you guys could see it, this would be a 2D Altspace running on my computer. It would connect to my local host. Like when you don't have it running on your machine, so you couldn't see it at all. Oh, looks like we lost the broadcast again. All right, is that any better? All right, I see some funny faces. Okay, great. Looks like we're moving along here. So you'd have nothing to connect to unless you were running something on your own machine here. So, all right. So why use local in the first place? So I'm going to use this kind of a traffic light things up here, kind of breaking it up into 4 categories. Setup is really easy. Debugging for a single user is really easy. Multiple users just doesn't work, so that's red. And then deployment, in other words, using it in the long term, just would not work either. So it's useful for very initial debugging when you're doing a lot of quick reboots or restarts of your MRE just as you're getting it going. That's where local server works. But it's going to be just a single user in the world at the time, and it's got to be on the same machine. And kind of moving towards that. So, all right. So stepping forward, a VR headset here. A LAN mode. This is kind of another mode that you can potentially work in, and this is something that I'm going to attempt to show you here if the web projector is cooperating. This is actually the mode I spend most of my time in, and it's not one that I have seen documented anywhere in any of the MRE documents. It's what I find to be the most useful for debugging, especially with multiple users here. Basically what it does is instead of that 127.0.0.1, that local address, you can set the MRE to listen on your LAN. And that way it's still protected from the internet. People outside can't get to it. But if you, say, have a second computer with Altspace on it, you can be connecting to the same one and have 2 users see the MRE. If you have a headset, which is the mode I usually use, I'll have the MRE running on my computer. I'll keep my headset going and just pop in and out to see what's going on. That's a really good way to have multiple users without the complication of having to deploy it. You're still on your local machine here. So again, so the setup's a little more complicated, so I turn that yellow. The debugging is still really simple. You get multiple users. They just all have to be on your LAN. You could have a LAN party, Altspace LAN party maybe at home, and let everybody connect to your MRE at that point. And then deployment is still not deployed for Altspace in general. Anybody that's on your home network could see it, but not people outside of there. All right, so the LAN server MRE. These are the types of things you go through in Altspace here. The first thing you need to do is figure out your own IP address. I've kind of shown you ways to figure it out if you are on a Windows machine or a Linux machine and you don't know it already. These are the commands to pop in. Probably the same as Linux. I'm not sure. Essentially, the method to find that out is to see if you get inside Altspace Discord and ask if others can see it. And maybe a Mac user that knows how to look up their IP address can help you there. the thing to look for are addresses that are kind of in this format here. Really the first two. This third one is very rarely used. But your LAN IP addresses will tend to start 192.168 and then two other numbers, or start with a 10 and then some other numbers here. You need to update the MRE to use the LAN IP, and then you need to listen on Altspace with that LAN IP address. And this is how you do it in Altspace. I won't try to click into it here. We can walk through that, but it's really going into the world editor, going to that local server that you created before potentially, and changing this local host to whatever that IP address is here. All right, I'm going to attempt again to show you how to set the LAN server to that. All right, things still seem to be working here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up my code editor here. And actually try to open that the appropriate code here. So open a file. And for some reason it's operating a little slowly here. Alright, I'm getting a message about a bigger font. I'll do that when I get a chance here. There we go. But unfortunately I'm getting a not responding on my editor. Alright, I'm going to just go ahead and click out of it. I know you can't see it, but basically there are two files in here. One is called app.ts and one is called server.ts. That TS is the TypeScript that we were talking about before. The one you would edit would be the server.ts. Let me get that out of the way. Would be that server.ts. And probably the best thing to do, I'll go to that MRE Discord and kind of post the instructions in there. I really wish I could show it to you. Maybe the font here is big enough that I could actually point to it. So it's in the source directory. So you see there are two files in here. I think this font is big enough for you to read, an app.ts and a server.ts. I'm going to see if server.ts is too big. It's fairly small here. So what I would have to do here, and unfortunately I don't have it commented out here, this is straight from here. This line here, the server equals new MRE web host. You add another line that said base URL. And again, I'll post this in that MRE chat at the end since I can't show it to you right now. And at that point is where you would set your address to whatever that local address is. So we'll go ahead and then again I'll talk you through that on the Discord, unfortunately, since it's not working here. All right, let me bring what happened to PowerPoint. Alright, my PowerPoint seems to have exited. Let me bring it back up. And I can't even play that one on Altspace. So there's the PowerPoint. All right, I think we're back up. Okay, so stepping forward here, let's see, we got about 15 more minutes. So the third case is the actual deployed MRE, and this is what you do after you've been through all your debugging and you're ready to either test it with a lot of users, more than you have on your LAN, or just kind of open it up to the world a little more. This is what you do in order to get everybody in Altspace able to go into a world and start using your MRE. You find, again, some server somewhere, and it's going to be separate from the Altspace one. So some server to run it could be Heroku, could be OpenNode, could be another one that you're already using or like, and deploy your MRE there. And again, that piece is unfortunately different for every particular service. So you kind of have to learn how to do it for the service you use. The setup is significantly more difficult. Debugging is significantly more difficult once you get to that point. That's why you want to do most of your debugging locally first. But what makes debugging difficult is you're generally not going to be able to run a debugger on your remote server in a way that you can connect to. But it works great for multi-users, and it's what you have to have for actually deploying the MRE itself. All right, I'm not going to walk through the deploying here. I was hoping to be able to do that, but with my editor not working, it's unfortunately not going to work. So. All right, so for next week here, and again, these will be posted to where you can get to them from that the Discord server. It's really just kind of walking through that Hello World example here that I just talked you through. Get your code editor ready, install Node.js, install Git, so you can get everything ready and going on some machine. Run through that example. This one site just did, just follow through those steps. I know you couldn't see the browser, unfortunately. I get the font bigger, but you'll be able to step through it. It's pretty straightforward on your machine. Run through those steps. Run Hello World in 2D mode. Enter your 2D mode, and you should see that if you guys have seen the Hello World, it's kind of the spinning block with the word Hello World above it. All right, and then run it in the LAN mode. And again, I'll post the edits you need to make to that server.ts in the MRE Discord, since I wasn't able to show it to you here. And we'll just kind of go through it there. Then you'll be able to see it running there, and then you could even test the ability to see it on both your headset and your 2D mode. All right, so at that point, I'll kind of open the floor to questions again here. So I'm going to need to stop broadcasting. And go to my host tools. I think I just got louder for everybody again. All right, so hand raisers should be enabled. Any questions? All right, Nagaman. Hey, Nagamon, if you're talking, I can't hear you. Unfortunately, still can't hear you, Naga. You might need to mute and unmute your microphone. All right, unfortunately, I can't hear you. I'm going to go ahead and take you off there, see if you can maybe work out what your issues are. Lance, you should be up.
Okay, I didn't know I was going to be that fast.
1 second here. All right, and we'll go back to Naga here because it was my problem. And I know what that is. I just got to get back to it. All right, so I'm not projecting anymore. All right. Go back to the host panel. These presenting an Altspace on a single PC. I had to switch to a single PC at the last minute because of problems I was having. So, all right, bring up the host panel. All right, and Naga, you should be good now.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Great.
Yay! Thank you. Okay. Well, all right. Nice to talk to you. My question was, how do we access your Discord? How do we find you?
Okay, so the Discord, if you go to developer.altvr.com, Altspace's developer page, and if you go to the Discord server there, Stephen has set up a channel for this class in particular called Intro to MREs. So I think you're already on that Discord.
So it's on Altspace's Discord. Right on.
Right, right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll go to Lance again. All right, you're up.
Alright, don't know if this is a dumb question or not, but when you say, to do local servers for the MRE, is that like a local server on your computer itself, or what?
It is, and that will be the way most of the Altspace examples come by default. So, in other words, when you first check it out from Git and compile and build it, it's going to be running as a local server. And what that means is that only other programs on your computer can see it, not even a headset in the same house as you will be able to. So you'll be able to see it in 2D mode on that exact same computer, but that's the only way to do it. Well, while it's the local server.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, that was my only question.
All right. Appreciate it, Lance. And Dr. Paradise. Let's see if I can. All right, you should be on air now.
Hello?
Hello, yep, I can hear you. Well, I could for a second. Could you try muting and unmuting again? Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not hearing you. All right, just a second. I'm going to try amplifying you one more time. All right, try again, Dr. Paradise.
Hello?
Hello, yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
You can hear me, great. Could you just cover briefly the kinds of things you can do with MREs?
Oh, sure. So it's. Oh, I'm getting a little feedback, so if you could mute again, please. All right, appreciate it. All right, so there are multiple things you can do. You can bring in programmatically any kit item that you've created in Unity and upload it to Altspace. You can create items directly in there. You can attach those items to users. You can do all sorts of animations. You can, for instance, detect when an item enters a particular collider. That's basically a non-trigger event. So in other words, when an item enters a particular area, you can cause something else to appear or cause something to be animated, things like that. Turn animations that you bring in via MREs on and off, things like that. So it's really about automating Altspace to a large extent. So. All right. Appreciate it, Dr. Paradise. Go to Smith here. All right, you should be amplified now. You there, Smith? Try muting and unmuting. Unfortunately, I can't hear you. All right. I'm going to try amplifying you again. Just a second here. All right, go ahead, Smith. Fortunately, I can't hear you. I'm going to move on to the next person. Smith, if you can maybe try to figure out what's going on with your mic, we'll try to come back to you. You should be on air now.
Hello. I'm wondering if it's possible to record audio through MRE.
Through MREs, I've not found a way to do that. I've looked for it myself. One of the things I would love to do is record audio in one area of a big world and have it play out of another, kind of give you a speaker system. So I've looked for it, and as I can tell, unfortunately, I don't think you can get to. You can play audio that's elsewhere, but you can't record it.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to try going back to Smith here. He's the only other one I see. You should be on air, Smith. All right, unfortunately, I'm still not hearing you, so I'm going to move on. I'll try to come back again here. And Lawless, you should be up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I want to know, with MREs, do they only work in a specific room or world? They won't work in multiple worlds. Is that correct?
You can have MREs and you can have the same MRE in multiple worlds. Yes. For instance, right now, I'm not sure how many rooms we have open here, but the MREs that are kind of sitting on those tables just as you entered, they're in all 4 of these worlds, and they do count as 4 different worlds. And you'll get basically a different copy of everything in the different worlds is kind of the easiest way to explain it. When we start going to it, one of the parameters you get when your MRE first starts is something called a context, and that kind of includes what world you're in. And so that keeps everything local to the world. So you can have the same MRE in multiple worlds. If you wanted to maybe synchronize the events in the 2 worlds, that's possible, but it's a little bit more involved, if that makes sense. So we can talk about that a little later if we need to. So that makes sense?
Yeah, thank you. That does. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Lawless. Marty.
Yeah, when you're testing on your LAN environment, do you use 2 different Altspace accounts, or will it let you log on more than once with the same account?
I use 2 different ones. With Altspace, as soon as you try to log in to a second one, it kicks you out of the first one.
All right, I suspected something like that. Thank you.
Yep, not a problem. All right, and Cheddars.
Hello. So, first comment is, I noticed that Ben's slides works between multiple rooms by sharing the same session ID of the MRE. So that would seem to suggest that you can synchronize events between multiple rooms and or worlds. Secondarily, my question is there a way to record a texture that exists in the world, or record an object's ID that's in the world? So like, let's say you put an MRE into a world and you wanted to get the rendered texture of a camera object. Would you be able to grab that and get the video?
Unfortunately, no. What you have to do with that is bring in your camera via the MRE, and then the object with the render texture already set to match the camera.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so you have some sort of avatar in OBS staring at a screen, so you could use the camera to record or live stream or whatever. Cool.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, not a problem. Hey, and thank you about that session ID. That is how you synchronize between the multiple worlds. If one of you folks want to try it, the MREs at the front here are synchronized between the worlds. So you can actually play that tic-tac-toe game if you're in room 1 with somebody in room 2, and be playing with somebody who you can't see. That's actually kind of fun. We tested that out the other day. So, all right, and Karen.
Yes, Dargan. Smith had a question, so I told him to message me. So he said,
okay.
I'm so sorry I teleported up on the stage. That was so embarrassing. Anyway,
That's
said,
all right.
Since we have something about more servers, can we change between lock and sync? I don't think I got that down. I was easily between local and sync easily. I'm not sure what he means by that.
Okay. So my guess is what he means. So what I tend to do is I'll do all my debugging in the LAN mode, that second one I talked about. Yeah, maybe I'll do some initial stuff in the local, but I like being able to test with 2 users at the same time pretty early on. And then when that's pretty close to ready, I deploy it. When I find something that doesn't work there with bigger tests, I'll just go ahead and switch back to the local one. The way you end up doing that is you will go into Altspace itself and either go into the world editor and edit that local server to point locally or point to your deployed one, or what I tend to do is just to have two of them running at the same time, and just one of them is active and one isn't.
Okay, thanks, Dargan. And Smith, if you want further clarification, if you message me, I'll ask Dargan.
Okay. Okay. So local and sync. Okay, I think I see what he sent me a message here too, and I think I answered the wrong question. It's probably the best way to put what I said. So, okay. So what he's asking about, and this is something we'll get into in a couple of weeks here, when you bring in an object in an MRE, so you have a couple choices in how you do it. You can bring it in what I would call kind of the normal mode, where everybody that's in the world can see the object. Or you can make it local to a particular user. In other words, you can have an object appear for one user, but not for anybody else in the same world. I have never tested just toggling that flag to see if it works. I've always had it, local to the user, or always had it synced. So I don't know if that would work or not. But we could definitely give it a try, and I can kind of, if it sounds like you've done some work with it already, I can kind of work with you maybe to help you set up the test if you've got something close to that already. So, Smith, let me know if that answered your question or not. So, all right. I'm not seeing any other hand raises or any of the other mods here. Seeing anything? Oh, I see Marty again. Let me try that. All right, Marty?
Yeah, thank you. Since you're bored, when Cheddar's question kind of just made me want to ask about the significance of that session ID field when you're like in the world builder and you're bringing in the MRE and it's got that session ID there. Is that just a unique number, or what is the significance of that field?
Right. So when Altspace creates it, when you first bring it in, that Altspace is going to fill that with a random number just to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything else out there. So that's where you can bring in, a copy of your MRE in one world, bring up a copy in another, and it does not interfere with each other. If you want the things to be synchronized, then what you do is you use that session ID, use that same session ID in both worlds, and then you've basically got the same MRE running in both worlds, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, so like if I did want them synchronized and I wanted everybody to see the same, let's say it was a control panel or something that I was clicking on buttons, and I want everybody to see the same thing, if I put like Marty 1, 2, 3, so that, well, are we talking about two separate worlds or two different?
Yeah, so
go ahead, sorry.
It'd work either way. I was thinking two separate worlds, but it would work with two copies of the MRE in the same world.
Yeah, all right, because I was just thinking, oh, that's okay. I'm sure I'll see more when we play around with it. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, appreciate it. All right, well, thanks, everybody. I'm not going to turn the web projector back on again for this last slide. It's just a little summary here. When I was taught to do these presentations, you start out with tell them what you do, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you did. So I'll just read to you. We went over MRE development. It's got a steep learning curve. Expect them to be buggy. They need to be deployed to a server on the internet for all of Altspace to see them. Running them in a local and a LAN mode is very helpful for debugging. So that was kind of my summary of what we went over today. So, all right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for putting up with the Altspace issues. Fortunately, I don't think the web projector has been kicking people, but it seems to reset every once in a while. So let's just keep doing what you're doing. Give me frowny faces when it seems to disappear, and I'll just keep restarting it, and we'll keep going. So. All right, well, thanks, everybody. I'm really looking forward to this class, and I'm really thrilled by the amount of interest we had. So, All right. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll just call it an event. Thanks again. And if I get to